Here.
Chesterfield County Chair Smith,
Here.
Ms. Walker.
Here.
Thank you. Goochland County, Mr. Gillespie. Hanover County, Mr. Badunez. Mr. Hardman.
Here.
Thank you. Henrico County, Ms. Smidler.
She's on her way in.
Okay. Powhatan County, Mr. Webb. City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Here.
GRTC, Mr. Adarqua. Ms. Robinson.
Here.
CVTA, Mr. Parsons.
Here.
Plan RVA, Mr. Bushing.
Here.
DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky. Mr. Hudson.
Here.
Thank you. VDOT, Mr. Totten. Mr. Riblett.
Here.
RMTA, Ms. Dean. And Virginia Port Authority, Ms. Nelson.
Here.
Thank you. Chair Smith, we do have a quorum.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, but this is Amy Inman and I'm here for New Kent County.
I apologize, Ms. Inman. I have you marked as present.
And this is Sharon Smidler. I put in the chat, joined well during roll call.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you all. Thank you, Janice. And do we have any amendments to the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the March 10th, 2025 meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the meeting minutes? And are there any revisions needed? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Sherry. Is there a second?
Second, City of Richmond.
Thank you, Dirona. We can handle this with a voice vote. All in favor of approval of the March 10th, 2025 meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Or is there anyone opposed? Or any abstentions? All right, with that, those are approved, and we'll move on to item 5, public comment period. I haven't looked in the chat or Q&A.
I don't believe we have anybody.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to item 6, CVTA chair report. Y'all just take that off the agenda because I never have anything. So nothing for me. Number 7, GRTC FY 2026 Regional Public Transportation Plan. Is Patricia going to go through this for us? Yeah. All right, I'll turn it over to you, Patricia.
Sounds good. Sorry, I wasn't quite sure if I share my screen or not, so let me go ahead and just make sure we're all in the same memo was all I'm sharing today.
Yes, I think that's right. Yes.
All right. I just wanted to give a quick level rundown of our regional public transportation plan update for FY 2026. So this is just an opportunity for GRTC to meet our annual requirement and identify how GRTC plans on using our FY 26 CVTA funds for our upcoming year. I have our high level priorities here, which is going to look very similar to years past. Ensure the stability and maintenance of current level of transit operations, to prioritize capital requirements and maintain state of good repair, to advance planning studies and capital mobility priorities, and prepare for updates in 2026. Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there supposed to be a presentation that's being?
Oh,
No,
I thought it showed.
I don't see a presentation. Thank you. That's coming on.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I can't tell which screen it's sharing. Are you seeing the memo that's attached?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
you're right.
Thank you. I'm glancing around my 3 screens here. Yeah, so the priorities I just outlined are just the section of the memo here, outlining what we plan to prioritize for FY 2026, especially in regards to our CVTA funding. Next up is the service priorities that we went through in 2025. So that's kind of what we've done up until now and through June. And then we have our FY 26 priorities. And actually none of these priorities are using CVTA dollars. This was just more of a reference point for the group to understand what GRTC is doing as far as service updates. So we would be replacing 3 low performing and limited availability fixed routes with microtransit service, which is exciting because it's actually an increased span. It covers the same footprint as far as the actual routings are concerned, but has an increased span, and it'll do curb to curb service instead of bus stop to bus stop. A lot of extra access there. And then table 3 here is highlighting the budget needs. So we have 28.6 million to state of good repair. That's just maintaining current operation levels. 250,000 for planning studies. That is for transit-oriented development near the downtown transfer station, the new permanent downtown transfer station. And then capital matches, GRTC has outlined 112 million for total operational expenses for FY 26. 60 million of that is capital planned expenses. And then using CVTA dollars, it'd be a 2% match of the 60 million, which is where that 1.2 million comes from. Right. And this is just our recommendation is that GRTC would like to continue the practice of keeping our funds in restricted reserve to use for the next fiscal year's priorities. So for FY 25, we'll close out the year on June 30th with about 33.9 million. The total listed in table 3 is expending about 30.05. So we would be reserving 3.85 million of that 2025 money for future use. And then the estimated accrual for FY 26 is about 35 million. So that would also be recommended to be placed in restricted reserve to be used in FY 2027. That is the recommendation that's coming before this group today. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Patricia. So this public transportation plan has been developed in cooperation with the TPO TAC. Has it gone to the TPO for approval already?
Yes.
Correct.
It has, and that's in the agenda packet, the resolution from the TPO.
Okay, and so now it's coming through to the CVTA TAC and then full authority.
Yep.
What's that?
This one hits all the stops.
Yeah. All right, so are there any questions regarding the regional public transportation plan? Dirona.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. Everyone, I just want to quickly bring your attention to a couple of things that we have just presented before us, the capital matches. Currently the, let's see, and I wanted to target the CVTA because it's the funding and what that looks like. And so GRTC has established a policy that 2% is local match and 2% could be that of GRTC's special fund, which we're talking about today. I am a little bit concerned with how we categorize and separate the percentages of those dollars to the locality for local match. And with that, as you can see, as presented, there's about 3.8 million of available dollars that could also address capital matches. And I do think it was the intent of the authority to really ensure that there are funds there for capital needs. GRTC has provided some information that of all the total cost of capital needs, the city of Richmond bears 63% of those costs. And so we're really looking to the authority to really outline what that available dollars and the flexibility of using capital dollars when those needs occur. The city has taken on the responsibility for its large capital investments. We have sought through the authority, as you all know, funds for the North-South BRT, as well as the Downtown Transfer Center, which we anticipated would cause GRTC's capital budget to expand. But when we're talking about items such as bus wash upgrades, access security gates, when we're talking about technology hardware life cycle replacement, I beg the question on whose responsibility is that? And I do think that these are regional capital costs. The city has looked at this in detail and is really merely asking for an additional 700 additional dollars out of that 3.8 million, which is access, to really be used for the needs of the region and these capital needs. So I look forward to GRTC. This is a question in how you will plan to address that and leverage the regional dollars that the city has brought to the table, in excess of 6.5 million from the authority towards the North-South. I'm sorry, and towards the Downtown Transfer Center, and then 8 million towards the North-South. So we do look to take and leverage those responsibilities, and again, ask that some of these additional costs be borne by not the majority of Richmond, but by the region. Thank you.
Madam Chair, you're muted.
Barbara, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Patricia, can you help answer that question?
So quick, Barb, quick one from, this is Frank. During our
Okay.
part, yeah, if you can you act, so I'm trying to get that question fully, sorry. So if you can kind of, once again, just briefly ask what the, ask your question.
I will. Thanks, Frank. So my question is specifically tied to the capital matches line item here. And it's being explained that 2% of that is of your 60 million capital planned or for spending. And I've asked RTC to take a look at the items that they place into the capital matches and attribute to the localities, and spread those out so that we can see, because typically what we've seen last year, we had about a total capital match of $196,000. And this year that amount is over $500,000 being requested. And when we asked for more detail on those costs, we found that a lot of the costs attributed to Richmond were generalized costs, and we're simply asking the funding source and we are going to mirror this through our authority members, and that we do, and we think that it can be solved at this technical level, and that GRTC can ensure that we would be leveraging additional regional dollars, and that the exorbitant additional dollars being requested of the city of Richmond, those items are considered as regional capital cost.
So if I understand your question correctly, I mean, to speak to what you just said, my understanding is that for the city of Richmond, the idea is that, I mean, because you got those grant, the money for North-South and then the downtown transfer station, and the idea is that the city is going to use that as a local match for those projects.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so pretty much what we're saying is that for the North-South and then the downtown transfer station, the dollars that you got from the regional CVTA grants, it's going to go towards it's going to serve as a local match for the project cost.
Yes, and it not only should serve as the 2%, but the total 4% local match.
4%, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah, great.
So again, Madam Chair, if I would, so again, if GRTC can tell us that that would happen, then of course, I would love to discuss entertaining a motion to move this forward. I do know there are budget constraints related to this request, but it had to be for the record that the city of Richmond states its point about what dollars are used for the regional capital matches and potentially raising that dollar amount to reflect the capital needs of the region.
So are you suggesting instead of it be a 2% match for capital, it be 4%?
No, I'm sorry, no. Not at all. All I'm asking is that in some cases, and not in some cases, anything towards GRTC. This is GRTC's 15% of its funds from the CVT. We also have CVTA regional dollars. So in that case, I'm asking to maintain GRTC's dollars of the 15% for capital needs of that organization. And then those, again, specialty that are tied to some leveraging or other sources, we leverage that because the feds and the state look at CVTA regional as local dollars, which is a good leveraging of all of the money that we're utilizing to get these projects done.
I do know that at the GRTC board, there is a strong desire to have a conservative amount of money in the reserve. So shifting funds out of reserve to increase capital matches, I think is something that would need discussion at the GRTC board. Frank and Patricia might want to weigh in if they agree or if that's their understanding as well.
Yes, I don't think that excuse me. Yeah, I don't think that is something that I could just agree to. But I'd be happy to bring it back.
I think something that is complicating matters in trying to make a revision at this point is that this has gone to the TPO TAC and the TPO. So trying to make a change at this point is a little challenging. Dorona, do you want to step in?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to reiterate that every year this group, not the TPO, in particular in regard to the dollars, approve this as a way to spend the funds. And so I think correlating are the items in the capital plan, are those good items? Yes. And now it comes to, we have dollars that are coming to the CVTA. This is the time to change what goes into the reserve. It's merely asking for less than $1 million to be used for capital expenses. And then that would still leave 3.78 million going into the reserves. That's what this request is asking. And I don't think that when we're looking at these different types of projects, otherwise, I'm not sure how the city of Richmond would keep up with the continuing expansion and that 63% attributed to us on items, again, that are really should be borne by the region.
Yeah, I'm definitely following you on that part. I'm just concerned about trying to make a revision at this point in time. Sharon?
I just wanted to reiterate your concerns that you mentioned, Barb. Like, my understanding was, to have more in the reserve as well. And worried about changing after it's already gone to TAC and TPO. It seems like we may need to have some more discussions before any changes.
So, thank you. Frank and Patricia, is it possible to defer action on this, or is this something that needs to be ironed out to keep the GRTC budget approval process on track?
I think we needed to keep the budget approval on track. Oh, sorry, I see other hands are up. But yeah, just to answer your question, I think it's something that we need to keep the budget process on track.
Right. Amy?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I kind of want to echo what Dirona is saying in terms of, this is CVTA funding, and this body is the one that approves that, the allocation of these funds. And I've been told in previous conversations through the TPO, when we've been bringing up the need for New Kent to have express bus service, that, oh, well, that's a CVTA item. Well, so now you're telling Dirona, no, sorry, this has to go back to the TPO when this is really a CVTA funding. So I guess, which way is it? I think it's a small amount that Dirona is asking for. And it seems to me that this body should be able to make that recommendation without it causing havoc on GRTC's budget or, needing to go back to the TPO. This is CVTA money. The TPO doesn't approve CVTA money.
It approves the formation or the development of the regional public transportation plan, which is what this is talking about.
Well, but this is
Chet.
allocating CVTA money.
Understood. Chet?
Yes, just to clarify the process, the state code has not changed since 2020 when the CVT was created. And I'll read it from the code. The GRTC shall develop a plan for regional public transportation within Planning District 15 in collaboration with the Richmond Regional TPO in conformance with guidelines required by the state code. The GRTC shall annually provide to the authority sufficient documentation as required, showing that the revenues distributed under the tax distribution guidelines were applied in accordance with authority approval. So what that means is that what is being presented here went through the process where GRTC worked with the TPO to develop the plan, which is what's on the screen. And now it's being brought to the TAC for recommendation. There is, I mean, if the CVTA is not, is not willing to approve this plan, then CVTA, I think, could send it back to the TPO to redevelop the plan with GRTC. I mean, that's going to set us back probably a few months, but I think that would be the process if TAC can't come to an agreement on a recommendation today. This is not something that CVTA develops. This is something that is done, as the chair said, between GRTC and the TPO.
Dirona?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Chet, for that clarification, and really more example on the category of those needs, which the city does agree that the maintenance of transit operations, planning studies, and capital matches are adequate planning things out of the Richmond Transportation Planning Organization, in which I am currently the chair. What we're talking about specifically are the dollar amounts and looking at how this body looks at funding the needs across the region. Thank you for, Madam Chair, for entertaining the City of Richmond's express concerns with how capital matches and those needs are determined in regard to the funding. Again, this body is the body that funds the expansion of regional transit across the region. And again, I'm not sure when exactly we are planning to utilize all of these capital dollars that we continue to set aside and fall deaf to the ears of the localities that are saying, hey, we need this regional dollars to help with this expanding capital budget that we're presenting. So thank you, and I do yield. Thank you.
Okay. That makes, I have another question for Frank and Patricia. So is it possible to be seeking CVTA regional dollars for some of the capital matches? Does that make sense?
So is it possible for us to for us to seek regional, is it additional regional funding for capital projects? Was that a question? Sorry.
That's the question. Can you, instead of using the CVTA transit money, which is what you're showing here, can you seek CVTA regional dollars for capital matches?
That's a question I'll have to take up because I don't have the response to that.
I don't quite know why you would do that, right? I think you'd be looking for bigger pots of money.
Bigger money, right?
Barb?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could, but I think and it's exactly what I'm saying, is that for the larger projects that aren't little amounts of money, if there's the ability to recognize and ensuring that we see what the transit special fund can do and what leveraging we do have with the regional. We went in with the intent with GRTC with the application in regard to these projects that would be born of the transit organization. And those dollars are intended to match those grant opportunities that either the locality or GRTC are able to maintain. I employ all of you as all of these great regional transit options come to your community. You'll start to definitely utilize that leveraging of all the types of dollars with growth. I mean, think about the North-South, a large investment, as well as the downtown transit. And all of that helps the regional transportation and transit across the region. So again, I think that it's just important to understand that we're just early on when we talked about CVTA transit dollars, we had clear dollars for operating and we had some for capital, and we talked about what those capital needs could be. And I think we're being short-sighted on seeing those reflected in the CVTA transit budget. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wish this discussion had happened earlier in the process, because I don't really fully understand it and feel like it is putting GRTC staff in a difficult position if we were to approve the shift of 700,000 out of the reserve into capital matches at this point without them having some conversation with the board and their administration. So I'll call the question. The recommendation in the agenda is to, I don't think I'm looking at the right thing. Pull that up. Sorry, folks. Where is that recommendation, Chet?
I could read it. It's on the agenda.
Okay, thanks.
Requested action is a motion to recommend approval of the GRTC Regional Public Transportation Plan.
I just have a quick question, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Before you make your motion. Darona, is this really critical for your North-South project? This funding?
Yes, I mean the replacement of the funding. So what we're asking for is that there's about $464,000 that's currently well, I'll say half of that, 200, and so is being attributed to this capital matches line item that we see up here. And we could leverage that and help to bear some of the costs of the additional things that are on the list that Richmond are that are happening to GRTC. And so I think, Amy, I definitely for the sake, I think that we could definitely carry this forward. And I think that we have board meeting tomorrow with GRTC. I think there's other torches, places that we can seek additional input to this and ensuring that GRTC does cover the capital costs without an exorbitant increase to the city of Richmond. We're also, again, being the only locality contributing and being sought after with written confirmation from GRTC requesting $1.5 million in free fare. Again, a lot of costs are being borne by Richmond. And we think that just starting somewhere with realizing that this is a regional entity and that cost should be expected and expended as so.
Okay. Yeah, I just think it's important to note that, the North-South has to move forward under whatever circumstance that needs to be a priority. Thank you.
I will offer this up. I don't think that there's any reason why we couldn't come back and amend. And tell me if I'm off track, but I don't think there's any reason why we couldn't come back and amend the FY26 Regional Public Transportation Plan, which could give us the opportunity to have the discussion at the GRTC board level and really vet this issue a little further and make sure everybody's on track with the shift of $0.7 million into capital matches out of reserve. With that consideration, is there someone willing to make a motion?
So move, Madam Chair.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, so the motion is to recommend approval of the Regional Public Transportation Plan as shown, understanding that we have the ability to amend it and continue this discussion. All right, I probably take a roll call on this. Chet, do you think, or voice vote?
I think roll call is a good idea.
Okay. Janice, can you help us out with that?
Okay, sorry about that. Miss Amos,
Aye.
Miss Adams,
Aye.
Chair Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Gillespie,
Aye.
Mr. Hardman,
Aye.
Miss Smidler,
Aye.
Miss Inman,
Aye.
and Miss Clark.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion carries.
All right, thanks, everyone. Next on our agenda is wayfinding standard project agreements for Hanover and Henrico.
You're on mute, Chet.
Thank you. I was halfway through it. I sharing on the screen the staff report. This is an instance where two impacted localities, Hanover County and Henrico County, have prepared draft standard project agreements for wayfinding implementation. This is something that was an outgrowth of the adoption of the wayfinding plan, whereas we are, as an authority, we're following the same layout and format of the adopted SPA agreement for reimbursement of funds used for wayfinding implementation. So what's in the packet today is the draft SPA for Hanover County and Henrico County, essentially setting up the fund where each jurisdiction can draw from as wayfinding costs are incurred. And then they can submit the reimbursement request just like you would for any local or regional CVTA funded project. The SPAs were reviewed last week by the Finance Committee, where it was noted that Henrico County has a little bit of formatting work to do on their agreement, and I have reached out to make sure that that's underway. But the Finance Committee did recommend that the agreements move forward for consideration at the end of the month when the CVTA convenes. And these are now in front of the TAC. The requested action is a motion to recommend approval of the two standard project agreements with, and I'll add with the changes as requested by the Finance Committee. I'd be happy to take any questions. Both jurisdictions are also on the call, so if there's anything specific, I'm sure either one will be willing to address those as well.
Thanks, Chet. Nora?
Here, we're working on ours, and thanks to Hanover for giving us a nice draft to work off of. But so is each locality going to go and get bids for procurement for a sign company, or is there a plan that if someone gets a company, we can work off of them and in the procurement have kind of a rider or something like that? That we're all maybe using a similar company if we're all comfortable with that company. Does that make sense?
Yes, who's that a question for? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess
Okay.
Hanover, Henrico, are you each putting it out to, I guess, bid or go through your procurement process on your own? And then I guess if you all are the first ones to do it, can you come back and let us know who you choose? And when you're working on your contract, can you make sure that you have a rider in the contract so that if we wanted to just use your company, we could?
Yeah, Henrico has not put it out to bid yet. We haven't figured out how we'll proceed with that. We can, I guess who goes first, whether it's Hanover or Henrico, whichever locality puts it out to bid first. But if it is Henrico, we can look at a potential rider or talk about those details with our purchasing department.
Yeah, I would echo that. If we put it out for procurement, we'll see if we can have some cooperative language placed in that. However, we do have on-call signed contracts with the county, so it's all going to be dependent upon the dollar amount that we expect the sign project to cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And Sharon, do you have a question?
Oh, just wanted to comment. Yes, we are working on the minor administrative, and we'll get that done this week is the plan. But
Okay.
it doesn't affect the overall language, just minor administrative, and we'll work on that.
All righty. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Is there a motion to recommend approval of the project agreements?
This is Sharon Snidler with Henrico. I make a motion to recommend the two project agreements.
Okay, thanks, Sharon. Is there a second?
I'll second. William Hardman for Hanover.
Thank you. We can handle this with a voice vote. All in favor of recommending approval of the standard project agreements for wayfinding for Hanover and Henrico, say aye.
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 Is there any opposition or any abstentions? All right, that carries. Item number 9, working capital reserve interest earning candidate projects. So this is a continuing item we talked about last month, and we've got additional information to go over, and I'll turn it over to Chet.
And I am unmuted. Okay. I would like to start this with a review of the minutes from last month. Staff was asked to update the project list, noting that it was important to know about smart scale leveraging being sought and whether projects were selected for the recommended funding scenario. We have done that, and in front of you on the screen is an updated staff report with 3 different kind of categories on there. So just to review for the public, in September, the CVTA pledged to set aside $5.05 million from FY24 interest earnings for regional project development. The goal was to identify projects that were ready to go and show an ability here with the additional $5 million to move something forward towards implementation. So the Technical Advisory Committee has been asked to bring back a recommendation, and we're looking at 3 different categories. The first, item 1 there would be one thing to do, noting the way projects have performed, the cost estimates and scheduling that has been happening would be to use this funding to supplement the regional project balance entry pool to support current project costs that are already underway due to inflation, material costs, and whatever else may be rising prices right now. So that is not specific to a project, but it is specific to projects that are currently underway. The second would be to supplement existing regional projects with an outstanding fund balance, so they're not already all paid for, that were also candidates for Smart Scale Round 6 funding. So this is getting back to the discussion that was held last month. We've gone through the funding applications from Round 6, and the 5 that are on the screen kind of fit all the criteria. What we've done here is sort these or present these according to the ranking from Smart Scale, with the lowest ranking, most desirable ranking, I guess, first. So the first would be CVTA 0060, which is the Powhatan project, US 60, Virginia 13 intersection improvement. The remaining need there is 5.1 million and change, as you can see. And then going through the list, the second project would be the West Broad Street intersection improvements at Parham. So that's a Henrico project, ranked 39. The remaining need there is 11 million. The next one would be Route 1 and Ashcake intersection. I believe that is the town of Ashland. Smart Scale rank 67 with the remaining need of 6.1 million. And then CVTA 42, Route 360 Woodlake to Otterdale, which is Chesterfield. Smart Scale rank of 94 with the remaining need of 11.7 million. And then finally, all the other projects that were in both categories for regional CVTA awards and Smart Scale 6 candidates were at least 17 million or above. So we didn't list all of those because of the remaining balance was so far offset from the 5.05 that's available. And then the final category here is to allocate funding to new regional projects, which are 5 million or less, that applied for funding previously but were not final candidates. So the 4 projects listed there were in the round 3 regional funding applicant pool. But it needs to be noted, these requests will not deliver the project through construction. So it probably won't meet the desire that the board had when they made the action to set aside this 5 million. This won't get us through construction. It's probably for just a section or a phase. So that's East Parham Road improvements, Holly Hill to Three Chop, I-95 and Parham interchange, and the Bellwood connector. So the requested action, which we've discussed in previous meetings, is a motion to recommend a direction for the authority for allocating the 5.05 million in interest earnings. We've talked a lot about this, but it seems like we have some nuance from meeting to meeting. So I'd be happy to take any questions, but I know there's going to be discussion as well, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chet. Does anyone have any questions? Darona?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chet, so if I'm looking at this correctly, could I say that we have, just generally speaking, there's 3 different choices there, right? 1, 2, and 3. And of course, if we wanted to do a mixture, we could, but for the most part, would you say that's fair?
I would say that's fair, yes.
Okay, and so looking at the supplement regional project balance entry pool, I think that means that would be covering the majority of the projects that are currently on the project list. And so I guess my question is, what's the difference in number 1 and number 2? And are those projects ready for construction?
So number 1 would just move this $5 million to balance entry.
Mm-hmm.
So as projects are advertised, if bids come in high, for example, the $5 million might be available to fully fund the project, so the project could be awarded. That's an example for that one. So not really identified for a specific project, just put into balance entry to be used as needs come up due to increased cost. Number 2, though, on the other hand, is projects that went, CVTA regional projects that went through Smart Scale, but were not selected. And it shows the amount of the Smart Scale request in that list. So of those 4 that are shown, even though there are more, of the 4 that were shown, there's only a couple that are under $10 million, 5.2 and 6.2. That's closer to the range of the $5 million that's available.
So if I could, Madam Chair, on that point, when we're looking at those smart skill ones, so for example, if we take, I know Amy has her hand up, but if we take
Okay.
Amy's project example and say, for example, it wasn't when we went through the process of allocating dollars and we weren't able to do the 25 million, but did 18 million, somewhere about those, I'm sorry for the numbers. Where does that fit in there? Because those would be something that we know is going to have an estimated shortage. So I was just trying to see where, how we could support things like that, and if number 1 did that, or if some other, if we had that considered that, those types of
Yeah.
projects.
No, those are things that should be brought up. So if there are other ideas besides what we've got shown right here, folks should let us know. Amy?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for the clarification on number 2. Yeah, I do think that we need to go back and understand how the projects were ranked in the CVTA process. And, I will go back to, our project where we were, not allocated the full amount, even though there was still money that we could have been allocated more than the 18 million that we received. That absolutely would have helped our score, and it would still benefit our project if we could go back and, have that rectified through this process. Because as I recall, and we don't have the scores up, but I don't believe the Powhatan project scored very high on the CVTA process. Would have to go back and look. I think that's how I remember that. And then I guess, and the others, similar to ours, right? The 5 million isn't going to fully fund it. But, would the 5 million help it, I guess, make its way into construction and to being fully funded? So I think those are a couple questions that we might need to have some answers to.
Okay.
And I'll just say one last thing. I wouldn't be opposed to number 1 either. But I do think that we need to go back and look at our Exit to 11 project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Dirona?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that too. If we were looking at just some similarity, I think I could definitely go for number 1. But I also wanted to note I'm a huge proponent in planning, and if we could potentially even look at allocating those dollars to a planning line item for planning studies, would give us some good shelf ready and closer to estimates for some projects as well.
Okay. So in thinking about planning studies, I think we would go back and look at the CVTA regional projects that were not submitted, that were submitted for either studies or PE only. And I think those are shown on the list, right, Chet?
That's right. That's item 3.
Okay. So yeah, any that would be options for us are already on this list. Sharon?
All good discussions here. I mean, we could support number 1, the balance entry. It's always a safe idea. Regarding number 2, I hear what you guys are saying, shovel ready. Obviously 2B and Henrico, West Broad at Parham is not shovel ready. So that doesn't seem like a good candidate given everything we're saying here, just to be transparent. And number 3, A, B, and C, the East Parham and the Parham, Holly Hill to 3 Chopped and I-95 and Parham interchange, they were all PE only, kind of like study PE only kickoff. So depending how the group wants to go, but that's
Mhm.
some explanation of Henrico's projects.
Okay. Dyrona?
Well, yeah, I meant to put my hand down, but I'll just say something since you called on me. Yeah, so again, I definitely think I could support number 1 and number 3 now that I understand that one a little bit better. Thanks.
Okay. Any more discussion on this item? All righty. Well, we're ready for a motion. It seemed like a lot of discussion. There was agreement that a fiscally conservative approach would be to put the funds into balance entry for the use of projects down the road. But I'll entertain a motion. Amy?
Madam Chair, just one final thing. As I recall, Mr. Carroll with Chesterfield County made the strong recommendation that some of this money be allocated to the rural jurisdictions, right? Because the funding for all the money that's gone into the Fall Line Trail and everything else that's sort of been, earmarked. And I don't think we ever got to an actual dollar amount that would be appropriate to be allocated to the rural localities, but I do think that's something else that might need to be considered.
Okay, thank you for that. I do know with the, I think it was 104, Chet, you might have to back me up on that, that went to the Fall Line Trail. Is that about right?
104.5, I think.
Okay.
Pretty close.
There was money also set aside for the rurals. Correct.
I'm
That's
just
correct.
going based on what Mr. Carroll recommended and was in discussion when the interest money first came up and it was brought to the TAC.
Yeah.
So that may still be a discussion that would need to happen at the Finance Committee.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. That Powhatan project would certainly check the mark in 2 of those then, getting a project across the goal line and also helping a rural locality.
I think it was to distribute the funding to each locality, not just allocate it to one locality.
Oh, okay. We'll have to
So
go
it was
back
to
and
set
listen to that.
aside funding, yes, for each locality, each rural locality. And I could be wrong, but I don't believe the funding that was allocated to the rules initially, at least, wasn't that as significant as $104 million.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
You're right.
So
You're right.
let's not make that comparison.
Well, I do want to point out that there was money set aside for the rules.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
not necessarily comparing it to be equal. Did not imply that at all.
Right. Noted.
Dyrona?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So, I mean, in lieu of what I've just heard, is there like maybe, is it the nomenclature that we say that the 5.5 will go on the balance entry with certain percentage insured to go to rural, or are we looking at just for any little rural project that that they may have, not any little, I'm sorry, any project that they may have? Amy, I don't know if you hear what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's $5 million. So is it going to fully fund a project? We have a roundabout right now that is in the design phase, that actually this money would go a long way in terms of construction, and right away. So yes, it would be useful for some of our smaller rural projects. So if we had, a million, 1.2, 1.2 million, maybe roughly each for the rural jurisdictions. that might be helpful.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair, I have one point of clarity question for you. And maybe for Chet. Are we looking, is this something that we will do annually, look at what to do with the interest, or is this something where we're kind of setting precedent?
That's a good question. I don't know what the intent of the authority members was. My initial view is that this was a one-off because we were trying to deal with the interest income reserves, and I don't know if it was intended to be an ongoing practice or what. So I think that would be a question at the board level to really dive into, Dorona.
All righty. Well, I think we've all heard the discussion. Is there someone who would like to make a motion for a recommendation for the 5.05 in interest earnings?
This is Sharon Smidler with Henrico. I make a motion to set aside the 5.05 million from fiscal year 24 interest earnings to the balance entry.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Sherry. I think we can handle this with a voice vote. All right, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 I'm going to
Is there any-
abstain because I don't feel like we've really answered the question of the rural counties. So I'm going to abstain.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Are there any in opposition? Any other abstentions? All right, that recommendation then. All right, next on our agenda is Candidate Project Database 2025 update. And this is part of our bond preparation.
Yes, thank you. This is a very quick item. Just to carry forward with some of the thoughts that that we've been discussing over the past few months. We are, as an agency, we're moving into a time where we're getting into kind of nitty-gritty details on the issues of issuing bonds for the implementation of the big regional projects that have been identified and are going to be identified for our 9 localities. I think that at the end of the month, the authority is going to have some options to be presented regarding projects. And one of the things that we want to do is more clearly identify what each of the committees is developing, and the tax focus, I think rightly so, is to identify priority projects that have regional impact. And we have done this in a preliminary fashion. Everybody has contributed a list of priorities that you have all put in, whether it's in your capital improvement program or other type of documentation or planning process. We're going to need to start refining that database to more clearly identify 1, 2, 3. I don't know what the number is yet, but a short list of regional priorities for each jurisdiction to be considered as we start to put together, as the Finance Directors Working Group and the Finance Committee start to put together budgets for what we could include in a bond issuance. So my expectation is that next month, in May, when we get together, we'll have some more clear direction to actually have a full agenda item about this and develop some understanding together of what TAC needs to put together as we move things forward. Sorry to speak in, big bubble discussion terms, but that's where we are at this point. I do think that TAC is going to be able to focus on the things that you're specializing in, project development, timelines, those types of things that will be super helpful for the authority as it considers issuance of bonds over the next 6 to 9 months.
So do you have a schedule for us, a deadline, or do you want to have the conversations with the finance director working group and finance committee first, and then come back?
That's a great question. I think it's at a minimum, it's going to be parallel discussions. So I think as we start probably in May, after the authority meets in April, we'll have some direction as a TAC in terms of what our goals are, what we need to accomplish. And then I'll be working with finance directors at the same time to develop the timelines, the budgets, et cetera. And then we'll bring all that together for the finance committee to consider to see how all those moving parts coalesce.
Okay. So I guess the takeaway for everyone here is to start thinking about the list that you sent in, whether it needs updating, and focusing in on your top priority. Because
yeah, I think that's a good takeaway. And as we do get more direction, staff will certainly redistribute that list so everybody can bring it to top of mind, and we can use that as maybe as our basis for discussion moving forward and refining and coming into more detail.
Right. Yep, and recognizing that priorities change, so there's probably stuff that's not on the list that should be on the list.
Right.
Okay, well, we'll start thinking about that on our end. Dorona?
Thank you. Just a quick question or comment, rather, I don't know. When we talk about top priority, and like you said, the priorities change, do we think that we could get any information on I guess the overall bonding horizon? So I would like to be able to report to my people, for example, hey, this is going to be our next big thing for the next 30 years. Or do we see that other opportunities come like in the next 10 years? So I think that if you could please pass that on as a City of Richmond's TAC person question in regard to thinking about the top priority, because I think that becomes important for us if there's, and maybe for others to understand if other opportunities will occur, if and when. And I think we'll know that probably more when we see how much they want to bond and that availability. But yeah, any insight on that I think would be helpful for my folks. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great comments, and always kind of the questions that have been floating around for me as well. It's kind of hard to give your list when you don't know the parameters, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much. Number 11 on our agenda is quarterly reporting requirements.
Okay. This is page 31 in your packet. Essentially, the impetus for this is, if everyone's had a chance to review it, is that the Finance Committee has dug in over the last few months and started reviewing financial policies and procedures and some of the legal agreements that are in place for the CVTA, and have asked some really good questions about reporting and, if hypothetical, if we are expected to issue reimbursement for project expenses, we need to know the information about that project and why it doesn't match. Things may not match up with what we have on file. So we took a look in more detail on both the regional fund as well as the local fund for CVTA dollars. The first one here As part of each standard project agreement, there's a requirement to submit quarterly progress and expenditure reports along with invoices supporting documentation to the CVTA. This is what is being used to review the requests and issue the checks to provide reimbursement for project expenses. So the adopted SPA says that the supporting documentation shall include copies of vendor and contractor invoices paid by the locality or VDOT, an up-to-date project summary and schedule, and a cash flow summary of all payment requests, payments, and adjustments in a form prescribed by the CVTA. Part of those things are being actively accomplished, and part of them are not. So the goal here with this item is to come back and address those to make sure that the reporting that's required by the SPA is actually being accomplished and provided for the Finance Committee to review. Then the second item is in regards to local reporting. The Code of Virginia says that each locality, this is in the indented section, each locality shall annually provide to the authority sufficient documentation showing that the revenues distributed under subdivision D3 were used for the purposes set forth therein. Essentially, that's the quarterly reports that we all submit. Up till this point, the current practice has included locality members submitting quarterly reports of local CVTA expenditures. And then at the end of the year, in July, August, there is an annual certification. So the CAO or somebody with the proper authority signs off that certifies that those CVTA local dollars are used for transportation purpose. So the goal of this new effort that we're talking about today is to reduce or even eliminate any errors in reporting that might be in place right now, and provide a more uniform method for every locality to report on spending efforts. Essentially, everybody submits quarterly reports in a different way. And sometimes there are transcription errors, sometimes there are things that are missing in one report that are provided in another report, et cetera, et cetera. So the action items that you see on the screen here, we think will achieve the goals to provide better information for the Finance Committee. For one, local reporting, to have a standardized spreadsheet using that displays year-over-year CVTA local spending. That is what I have distributed for everyone's consideration as we submitted quarterly reporting for Q2. So I think everyone should have seen this new spreadsheet format. And the goal here is to use that as we move forward. You can expand each fiscal year to show all 4 quarters all the way back to 2020. And then there will just be blanks that you would fill in as each quarter proceeds to show your new quarterly reporting for each type of project. Item 2, for regional reporting, we want to develop a standardized format again for updating project information. This is where we've had some missing details that would include a general project summary, an updated project schedule, and the cash flow summary. So what we included to address both of those in the agenda packet, one is the quarterly report as complete for Q2 for the locality expenditures, which is this. So we would ask that everyone use this moving forward to provide Q3, which is now something that everyone should be working on. And then the next item would be the regional reporting to include with reimbursement requests. So right now, there is an Appendix A and Appendix B that everyone has been using to provide updated materials. That usually has the project details here at the top and this full project schedule at the bottom, as well as the project budget and cash flow. This is being used for the most part by everybody who has submitted reimbursement requests thus far. what we want to do is make sure that everyone is using the same format. So what I've done for these pages, to go back to the Appendix A, is to add a section here for project summary. So that could be updated as needed, or at least provide a general project summary for the elected officials who may be reviewing these reimbursement requests and providing that information. And then I just took a stab at graying out some schedule details that may not be as necessary to provide the updates for reimbursement requests. But I really wanted to leave this discussion to TAC members in terms of what schedule details might be useful to have, what which schedule components may change that would need updating. Again, this is something that we need to develop as a committee to provide better information for elected officials as they review these reimbursement requests. Madam Chair, I have rambled on a little bit, and I think that I would appreciate some time to catch a drink and allow the committee to kind of digest what I've just gone over.
Okay, thanks, Chet. I'll take some questions. Josh?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question for Chet, so that was a good drink. It's super simple. On the relocate utilities item, I assume that's a relocate utilities plan, not actual construction relocation of utilities, just in sequence.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, because that looks like, I mean,
Yeah.
we're not going to be relocating utilities before we are done with design and bid. So
That's a great question. I don't know. All of these things are in the currently approved SPA. So this went through legal review by VDOT and everybody else. I would defer to the chair.
so I assume
think
that's
that's-
maybe relocate utilities plan.
I would think it's relocate private utilities, so not in plan, public water sewer, but Verizon Dominion relocation.
That's not necessarily going to be physically done before the design drawings are bid.
I think final construction design are the construction plans that'll be bid. So you'll have right-of-way plans already approved, and those are used for the utility relocations in the typical VDOT fashion.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other questions, Mark?
Yeah, Barb, I was just going to say that your description of utility relocation was the same as what I was going to suggest. So yeah, I think you've described what we would typically expect for utility relocation at that point.
Okay. I could certainly make some revisions to the milestones, but I don't, anyway, project scoping makes sense, survey. I don't think you need geotechnical engineering report. NEPA, I would keep. Preliminary design phase approval, I would keep that. And then citizen information and post willingness and public hearing are all the same, sort of public involvement. So that could all be wrapped up into one. And then right-of-way acquisition, I'd keep that. Relocate utilities, I'd keep that. I think you could then probably just go to invitation for bid, advertisement, get rid of environmental permits, and begin and end construction would be my suggestions on the milestones. Any more discussion?
Madam Chair, I think in terms of the milestones, the feedback I got from the Finance Committee was for Project X, you're being asked, we're being asked at this point to provide a check, reimbursement check for, the geotech. And what was done in the original SPA was a year later or a year earlier. So the date there didn't match the request for reimbursement. So I think coming up with a way here, like, would it be milestone and then anticipated date and revised date? Like, should we add another column as well so that new dates could be added as needed? to
Yeah, I like
provide
the
more
idea.
information?
I like the idea of having the original date in here and then having another column that would get updated with each quarterly report.
Okay.
If, to me though, if we're changing the milestones on the quarterly report, we ought to be changing them in the standard project agreement. And I know that's probably not something that you want to do.
We could certainly talk about that. I mean, I know Mark could, we could get together the same group that discussed the original SPA and see if there's any drawbacks to changing those dates or those details.
Yeah,
We discussed.
go ahead.
No, I was just saying we'd be happy to discuss, Chet. If you wanted to get together, we can certainly do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think streamlining it to really sort of focus on PE, right-of-way, utilities, construction, and getting environmental. I throw in that. That's kind of important too. Okay, are you looking for action on this item or just discussion?
This is just discussion. I guess the last point that I didn't get to is that the intent, and I've communicated this with everybody. I know that not everybody has had a chance to log in, but we're developing a password protected members page for the website where we can post either like the quarterly reporting spreadsheet so that everyone can just go in there and add your new numbers for the quarter rather than have to, copy, print, scan, email, do whatever you need to do to get information back to me. And we can do the same thing with the forms for the revised forms for the SPA reporting. But that website is not, the document library is not set up yet. But when it is, I'll just reach out to everybody individually to make sure you can access it and get what you need to get.
Okay. So this is the time frame that quarterly reports for the third quarter would be due. So should you kind of test out the forms that you have here? Give them a trial run?
Absolutely. That would be great.
Okay, that'll be good. That'll help us decide what we like, what we don't like.
So
All
for
right.
now, we're just talking about the local CVTA for quarterly reporting. I will just email everybody the Q2 spreadsheet and ask you to fill in your information into that and then send it back. And then once we have the members page secure, we can use that for the fourth quarter.
Okay, for local.
For local, yes.
But we can use these forms regional for the regional quarterly reporting.
Yes.
Okay. All right, gonna test drive those forms as well. Okay. Any other questions regarding quarterly reporting? All right, seeing none, moving on to item 12, CVTA TAC member comments. Does anyone have any comments? Nora?
More of an announcement. VDOT has done an amazing job with the northern end of the Fall Line Trail. And so we are having our ribbon cutting on May 22nd at 10 a.m. Place to be determined, but please put a placeholder on your calendars for May 22nd. We are so excited and thrilled with what VDOT has done to get a bridge built and all the pavement down and everything ready to go. We were thinking it was going to be September. So this is really fantastic and hope to see a lot of you all there.
Thank you. Yeah, that is exciting. Any other comments? All right. Next meeting, May 12th, 1 o'clock. And with that, we're adjourned. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.